Hello and welcome to CVR News Network. You're watching CVR English and welcome to 360 with me, Sandeep. The details. Iranian state television has released dramatic footage purportedly showing missiles being launched towards the Al Udeid US base in Qatar. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps claimed responsibility for the strike, calling it a devastating and powerful response to the recent USA strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. While no casualties were reported by US officials, explosions were heard across Doha. Qatar's defense minister confirmed that 8 defenses intercepted several missiles. The situation remains tense in the region.
This attack
Qatar has strongly condemned Iran's missile strike and the Udeid US aid base, describing it as a flagrant violation of its sovereignty and international law. The statement was issued on Monday by Majid Al-Ansari, spokesperson for Qatar's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Al-Ansari stated that Qatar reserves the right to respond in a manner consistent with international law. The attack, which caused no injuries, follows US strikes on Iranian nuclear sites and raises fears of a wider regional conflict involving Iran, Israel, and the United States.
With the international law and in a manner commensurate with the scale. This attack represents a flagrant violation of Qatar's sovereignty and contravenes the principles of good neighborliness and an assault on international legitimacy and international law. The state of Qatar affirms that it reserves the right to respond in accordance with international law and in proportion to the nature and scale of this attack. First, regarding the nature of the response, this is a sovereign matter. As you know, it is currently under discussion at the highest levels. However, as we have emphasized, the state of Qatar reserves the right to respond in accordance with the international law and in a manner commensurate with the scale and nature of this attack. The state of Qatar condemns in the strongest terms the Iranian missile attack on the Qatari Al Udeid airbase. This attack represents a flagrant violation of Qatar's sovereignty and contravenes the principles of good neighborliness and an assault on international legitimacy and international law. The state of Qatar affirms that it reserves the right to respond in accordance with international law and in proportion to the nature and scale of this attack. First, regarding the nature of the response, this is a sovereign matter. As you know, it is currently under discussion at the highest levels. However, as we have emphasized, the state of Qatar reserves the right to respond.
Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah ousted by 1979 Islamic Revolution, has called for the regime change in Iran, suggested this is our Berlin Wall movement. At a press conference in Paris, he condemned the Islamic Republic for its oppression of the Iranian people and addressed this message to Ayatollah Khamenei: step down, and if you do, you will receive a fair trial and due process of law, which is more than you have ever given to any Iranian. Pahlavi, 64, who is a figurehead for some, but not all, critics of the Islamic Republic, announced what he would be forming a communications channel to strengthen Iran's opposition. For those patriotic members of our armed forces, the time is now to join the nation. If you do, I will make sure your services to Iran is not forgotten and is celebrated, he said.
Credible reports indicate that Ali Khamenei's family and the family of senior regime officials are making preparations to flee Iran. The regime is on its last legs in towns and cities across the country. The military is fractured. The people are united. The foundation of this 46-year tyranny are shaking. This is our Berlin Wall moment. But like all moments of great change, it comes fraught with danger. We stand at a crossroads. One road leads to bloodshed and chaos. The other to a peaceful and democratic transition. The difference in these two roads depends on one factor, and one factor alone: whether the current regime in Iran is allowed to survive. If the West throws the regime a lifeline, there will be more bloodshed and chaos, because this regime will not submit or surrender after it has been humiliated. It will lash out. As long as it is in power, no country and no people are safe, whether on the streets of Washington, Paris, Jerusalem, Riyadh, or Tehran. There is only one way to achieve peace: a secular, democratic Iran. I am here today to submit myself to my compatriots, to lead them down this road of peace and democratic transition. I do not seek political power, but rather to help our great nation navigate through this critical hour towards stability, freedom, and justice. To the people of Iran, I see your courage, I feel your pain. I know you are suffering. I know many of you are afraid for your loved ones, your children, your future. So I speak to you today with a heavy heart. I worked for years, for decades, so that the scourge of war would never reach the borders of our land. Seeing the images of the people of Tehran forced to flee our beautiful capital, the explosions in Isfahan, the fires along the Persian Gulf, all fill me with pain. But more than pain, I am filled with anger, because this war is the result of the selfishness, hatred, and terror of one man, Ali Khamenei. While he directs this war from the safety of his hidden bunker, he uses our people as human shields. Credible reports indicate that Ali Khamenei's family and the family of senior regime officials are making preparations to flee Iran. The regime is on its last legs in towns and cities across the country. The military is fractured. The people are...
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has clarified Tehran's stance on the ongoing Israel-Iran conflict, saying that no formal ceasefire agreement has been reached. However, in a post on X, Araghchi stated that if Israel halts its military aggression by 4 a.m. Tehran time, Iran will also stop retaliatory actions. The statement came hours after US President Donald Trump declared a complete ceasefire, which Iran now appears to dispute. Araghchi emphasized that Iran's military operations continued right up to the 4 a.m. deadline. The development throws the ceasefire claims into question, raising uncertainty over the next phase of the escalating conflict in the Middle East. Rescue personnel searched for survivors and surveyed damage to buildings in Beersheba after an Iranian missile strike on Tuesday, with Israeli media saying one building was hit and 3 people were killed. US President Donald Trump had announced on Monday a complete ceasefire between Israel and Iran at 5:09 GMT on Tuesday. Trump said on social media platform Truth Social that ceasefire was now in effect and urged for it not to be violated. Iran's semi-official SNN news agency reported on Tuesday that Tehran fired its last round of missiles before the ceasefire came into effect. Israel has carried out attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities since June 13th after alleging Tehran has getting closer to obtaining a nuclear weapon. Iran responded with retaliatory missile attacks at Israel. Red sirens were heard across Haifa, Israel on Tuesday morning, hours after US President Donald Trump announced a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Trump announced a complete ceasefire between Israel and Iran, potentially ending the 12-day war that saw millions flee Tehran and prompting fears of further escalation in the war-torn region. A senior White House official said Trump had brokered a ceasefire deal in a call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and Israel had agreed so long as Iran did not launch further attacks. An Iranian official earlier confirmed that Tehran had agreed to a ceasefire, but the country's foreign minister said there would be no cessation of hostilities unless Israel stopped its attacks. Iranian Army Chief Amir Hatami addressed the top military commanders on June 23rd, said US has always received a decisive response for its crimes against Iran, and this time will be no different. Hatami's remarks came after US struck Iranian nuclear sites over the weekend. Iran has expanded its list of legitimate military targets and accused President Trump of gambling by joint Israeli offensive. As Tehran and Tel Aviv continue to exchange missiles and airstrikes, tensions remain at a dangerous high.
This is nothing new. Throughout the history of the Islamic Revolution, even before the revolution, and throughout Iran's history, we witnessed crimes committed by the Americans. In 1979, during the 8 years of the Sacred Defense, especially toward its final years, we witnessed their direct crimes. Each time they committed a crime, they received a decisive response, and this time will be no different. We will fight for victory. We consider martyrdom a great blessing, but right now, we are fighting for victory. This is nothing new. Hatmi said at a meeting with army chiefs on Monday after the US struck Iran over the weekend. This is nothing new. Throughout the history of the Islamic Revolution, even before the
5 people were killed when a Russian drone struck a residential building in Kiev. According to Iranian officials, the attacks also damaged an entrance to a metro station that serves as a bomb shelter. Rescue workers searched through the rubble looking for survivors. Since the start of the war in February 2022, both Russia and Ukraine have denied targeting civilians, but thousands have been killed in the conflict. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced a major military coordination agreement during their meeting in London on Monday. The deal aims to enhance Ukraine's drone production and deepen battlefield technology sharing between the two countries. The announcement was made at the Downing Street, where both leaders also met Ukrainian troops undergoing training in the United Kingdom. The agreement is a part of a broader 100-year partnership to strengthen long-term defense and cultural ties.
Which will be a massive step forward now in the contribution that we can continue to make, and is really a symbol of not only our joint work in this conflict, but the 100-year agreement that we've put in place.
It's a very historic moment. It was, and the good result of today's our meeting is this additional decision of co-production, and I think it will be very strong and will strengthen both nations. It's very important, yes, to share our experience, your experience, by the way, first of all, your experience on the battlefield and your knowledge and experience during interflex training missions.
And I'm really proud that this afternoon we're able to announce an industrial military co-production agreement, the first of its kind so far as Ukraine and the UK are concerned, which will be a massive step forward now in the contribution that we can continue to make, and is really a symbol of not only our joint work in this conflict, but the 100-year agreement that we have put in place.
It's a very historic moment. It was, and the good result of today's our meeting, this additional decision of co-production, and I think it will be very strong and will strengthen both nations. It's very important, yes, to share our experience, your experience, by the way, first of all, your experience on the battlefield and your knowledge and experience during interflex training.
Which will be a massive step forward now in the contribution that we can continue to make, and is really a symbol of not only our joint work in this conflict, but the 100-year agreement that we have put in place.
It's a very historic moment. It was, and the good result of today's our meeting, this additional decision of co-production, and I think it will be very strong and will strengthen.
57 Colombian soldiers kidnapped by leftist guerrillas in Cauca province were rescued without a single shot being fired, according to the Defense Minister Pedro Sanchez. The troops had been held for 2 days near El Petado, a mountainous region under heavy guerrilla influence. Authorities said the operation was executed flawlessly, targeting a descendant faction of the former FARC group operating in the area, notorious for drug trafficking and forced recruitment.
Un rescate que fue perfecto.
A rescue that was perfect. Operation Justice did not involve a single shot. It simply rescued our 57 soldiers, a rescue in which even you participated. And there are some people who have been captured for allegedly participating in the kidnapping. We will not tolerate this any longer. We are respectful of human rights and international humanitarian law, but you also have rights. These criminals must stop killing our people.
Estos criminales deben dejar de asesinar a nuestro pueblo.
Gracias. Bienvenidos a esta
All of Colombia was watching over you, because whoever harms a soldier, whoever harms a police officer, is also harming an institution and attacking the state. Whoever kidnaps a soldier, whoever kidnaps a police officer, is also kidnapping freedom.
China is devastated by severe floods. Footage aired by state broadcaster CCTV on Tuesday showed extensive flooding on China's Guizhou and Guangxi provinces, where hundreds were evacuated by emergency personnel. Vulnerable communities were told to seek refuge on higher ground as multiple rivers burst their banks after days of rain in China's flood-hit province of Guizhou, the southwestern end of the seasonal rain belt that stretches all the way to Japan. At least two riverside cities, Huangjiang and Rongjiang, each with a population of 3 lakhs over, on Tuesday told residents on the banks of fast-rising rivers and in low-lying areas to flee.
天下午的2点或2点半左右经过县城。那其实在我附近呢，一共有10个大型的小区。那越往地势低洼的地方呢，积水越严重，有的小区的1楼也已经全部被淹没。那么此时此刻呢，整个榕江县城最重要的工作就是仅6车道，还有2条辅道。但是由于积水严重，原来的中心大道呢，俨然已经成了一条河。我们本来是站摩托车、小轿车呢，有一部分已经被洪水淹上了。在路上，根据工作人员的要求呢，就向前进行了一个撤离。有飘的是垃圾桶，家里边的家具都被冲了出来。我们了解到呢，在榕江县城的这场降雨是从6月18号就已经开始了。那么到今天雨和大暴雨，因为这种持续的强降雨，并且加上上游来水的叠加影响，榕江县城的河水涨得非常快。 那我们也了解到呢，在今天中午的12点，榕江县已经把防汛级的转移群众。目前在整个榕江县已经设立了7大防洪区，每一个防洪区呢都由县里面的主要领导来担任。
济河池天鹅县昨天凌晨，强降雨造成部分山体塌方，山洪裹挟泥沙冲进村庄，当地政府联合多部门紧急转移群众。
纳州村地势比较低洼，我们看到现在的水位呢是已经有所下降，但是依旧还有很多地方的1楼还是被淹没当中。水位最高的时候是已经淹没到了2楼。
天鹅县民族中学460余名初3师生被困于教学楼内，时间就是生命，官兵们迅速奔赴抗洪抢险第一线，展开救援工作。截至发稿时，官兵与其他救援力量已将460余名师生全部转移到安全区域。在天鹅县民族中学隔壁的唐英小区，有20余名群众被困，武警官兵迅速展开救援。15点30分，受困群众已全部转。
The European Union and Canada have signed a landmark security and defense partnership aimed at boosting cooperation across cyber, maritime, space and crisis management sectors. Speaking in Brussels on Monday, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the deal would strengthen Canada's role in Europe's evolving defense architecture and kick off talks for Canada's participation in the €150 billion SAFE program. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said the pact would accelerate joint capabilities and innovation as a part of REARM, which is Readiness Europe initiative. The agreement comes amid shared concerns over Russia, Middle East instability and a confrontational US stance.
And it's just the beginning. We will now swiftly launch talks on Canada's access to a joint military procurement instrument. We call it SAFE. It's 150 billion euros. And together we will define where our cooperation can have the most value added.
The EU and Canada with this new security and defense partnership, which provides for this increased cooperation across the full spectrum of security. It will help us deliver on our new requirements for capabilities more rapidly and more effectively. It will help build our industries, secure our jurisdictions. So we are very pleased to be taking this important step towards participation in SAFE as part of REARM Readiness Europe, bringing shared expertise, joint research and innovation.
We signed a security and defense partnership. It will strengthen Canada's role in Europe's rapidly evolving defense architecture. And it's just the beginning. We will now swiftly launch talks on Canada's access.
And that's the end of the World 360. Stay tuned to